the Brigadier was one of our very first pedals, and we wanted this, military green, and so we sent it out to this anodizing factory that if you looked at on Google Maps, it was pretty much straight out of Breaking Bad. The place looked like a meth lab, and their tank was contaminated, it turned out, and it gave us this amazing green, and we loved it. And then for the next year, we tried to match it, and just basically, if you look at some of the Brigadiers, they're kind of all over the map.
Every batch is a little different.
Current green,
but they've
Yeah.
now they're they've got better processes, and we got a good manufacturer. We get a much more consistent thing. But yeah, there are some crazy Brigadier greens, and so hardware wise, this is kind of where we started out, and then Dave. So
Yeah, so that architecture started off with just a Shark processor, a single DSP audio processor that was commandeered to do everything, all of the controls and the pots and the MIDI for the next generation of hardware, which had a similar processor and is still a single processor, but then it was added MIDI and a little more processing bandwidth and an actual user interface with a display. And that got us through to the Timeline and the Mobius, and this is the Big Sky, and then a whole series of the pedals in that form factor, the V1 pedals, which led us to the next evolution, which is the Riverside, which had still a Shark processor, but then an ARM coprocessor to do the user interface, the switches, and internally it has a USB jack that allows it to do code updates and factory programming.
the Sunset was the same.
And the Sunset was that
architecture.
same. We're two in that
yeah, there
line.
was actually USB, but we didn't feel like we were really ready to kind of expose it. So if you do open it, you can, for firmware updates, there's a little USB connector that we use in the factory, and for one firmware update so far.
We're a little concerned about putting a USB jack on a distortion tone pedal.
Not too digital.
Not too digital, and there was a lot of discussion about that, which then led to the Iridium architecture, which is very similar, but does have an external USB jack and MIDI on the 1/4-inch jack, which is also this platform had. Was the first that we had with a 1/4-inch MIDI interface. But because this had loadable IRs, it necessitated putting the USB jack externally so that we could interface with an application.
And then the Magneto, you can kind of see a little bit more of what's going on. That this is
I'm
the
sure
ARM
everyone sees exactly what's going on. They'll be like, "Oh, yeah,
exactly." It's
It's
obvious.
obvious.
It's more exposed anyway.
As different as it looks, it's very similar in that you've got a processor that runs, looks at all the knobs and switches, and then in there there's in the middle sandwich here there's the DSP that processes all the audio, and actually USB also for factory and potential code updates.
Which then kind of brings us to the next gen of Volante.
It's pretty similar to the Iridium, except for adding the external, the DIN MIDI jacks, and
And certainly, from a user's perspective, a more elaborate user interface with more controls and features, but internally very similar to the Iridium, which then led to the next evolution, which was the V2, which is a very different architecture. Externally, it does have a USB-C jack and MIDI, but internally, it's based entirely on an ARM architecture.
Which in some ways it's similar to this one in that
back to a single kind of unified processor kind of design.
But a different processor.
Different processor, very different processor, but it's
well, and part of that is that you got an evolution to where USB was kind of optional, but now we feel it's mandatory on the pedal, and the ARM processors are what allow us to use USB. The Shark doesn't have any native USB capability, so basically you need an arm for USB, but now the arm has evolved to be able to execute the same level of DSP performance as we get in the Shark.
And there's a good 10 years, I believe, between these two, and the processing power available in an ARM back then just didn't exist.
Yep.
And the Shark was really the only thing that gave us that kind of power, and now we're able to harness that with an ARM.
And put all presets and MIDI control in
right
through the TRS jack and the USB as well. So.
Yeah. Which then leads us to the latest architecture.
I couldn't tell you very much about it. So the thing that's awesome about all this is I don't know anything about it, and I don't care. I just do code here. Oh, how many knobs and switches? Good.
Make it sound good.
Yeah. Honestly, these guys and some other guys take care of all the stuff behind the scene so that my world, just the way I like it, doesn't change ever. It's I'm comfortable here.
No.
I don't want to be uncomfortable. So
abstracting the creative palette from the technical palette, I think delineating those two things and being able to provide a platform that you can be creative is really the whole idea. So you don't have to think about that. You don't have to think about
so these guys do a lot of work so that I'm comfortable as I can.
You kind of see, in the beginning when we're doing this, we have it's pretty much the three of us doing, well, it was the three of us doing all the engineering, and I would do the circuit boards, Dave would do the software that runs the user interface, and Pete makes it sound good. And that was easy. We just kept, with these platforms, and then maybe through the Riverside, but then once we got to the Iridium, we started getting a larger team and getting people who could support us with more design, and to where these products really, Pete was still doing the sound, but I think Dave and I had a minimal amount of involvement in the our traditional roles.
Yeah,
but also back to that too. Greg actually did all the DSP, the algorithms and the setting up the ability to do the modeling in the Iridium and the IR loadability. Pretty crazy stuff, and I think Greg had been hinting that I should, over a couple of years or more, we should really get into this, and it didn't happen. So Greg's like, all right, I'm going to do it myself. So on those ones, I actually got involved only at the end to be kind of a traditional sound designer. The DSP in the system was in place, and I was just manipulating some coefficients and parameters to help get it to where it was. But
there's some pretty impressive math happening in the Iridium that Greg was able to pull off.
I think Pete and I complemented each other pretty well in that the stuff that I'm doing takes zero listening artistic ability. It's just pure math. It's I can put in a set of numbers, and if I get out the right set of numbers, then I did what I wanted to do with the cab sim. Where Pete's got a much more
obsessive compulsive about
the nuances of the sound, and it's I could more or less be bothered with that part of it. It's here, Pete, make this sound good. The cab sim works.
Right. So it worked out all right.
Yeah.
And now and Dean, who isn't going to be able to join us for this shoot, but Dean's been getting into a lot of DSP algorithm development, and that's as anyone who's looked at our marketing content for cloudburst, we featured Dean as he developed the ensemble algorithm, and he's got a lot more things kind of on the burner that he's working on. That's going to be really exciting and get us to the next level.
In the evolution along here, that's where Dean's coming in, right around here, and will continue to grow as a big part of Strymon.
Yeah, software-wise, the Lex looks pretty much like the Lex, but you're taking code that's on a completely different processor and porting it to this new platform. And Dean did a ton of work to get this new platform, and we're excited because now once you've got a platform, iterating to new products is much easier, and we look forward to be able to kind of accelerate our product development now that we've got these hardware platforms.
Cloudburst is a very versatile reverb. Specifically, it's the tagline is ambient reverb because it can do ambient reverbs, we feel, better than any other pedal can do ambient reverbs, and the ensemble feature is also something that you can't find on another pedal that really takes it to the next level. But also the range of the reverb makes it useful for short rooms or more traditional style reverbs. And with this preset capability, it really, I mean, it can cover all your reverb needs from short to long and ambient. So it's much more than a ambient only one trick pony kind of reverb. It was designed purposefully to cover the whole range, and give you an option in a small compact package to be more versatile than you would expect by looking at it on the outside.